Have you ever wondered why a memory you never lived can still feel completely real? Or why your heart can race before anything has actually happened? Right now, without moving a single muscle, your mind is capable of taking you anywhere, backward through time, forward into a future that has not happened yet, even inside the thoughts of someone you have never met. Stay with me tonight, because by the end of this journey, you will understand why your imagination might be the most powerful force you own, and you may never think about your own mind in quite the same way again. Hello there, and welcome. Tonight, we will be exploring one of the most mysterious and beautiful territories that exists. Not somewhere far across the ocean or high among the stars, but within. We will be wandering through the landscape of imagination. That quiet, boundless space where thoughts take form, where dreams are woven, and where every human mind becomes an artist, an explorer, and a creator. Imagination is both familiar and mysterious, something we experience every day yet never fully understand. If you enjoy these gentle explorations, I invite you to like and subscribe or leave a quiet thought in the comments below. It helps others find this peaceful corner of learning one restful mind at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your breathing soften and allow the calm of imagination to carry you gently forward. Let us begin. Imagination exists in every human mind from the moment of birth. Even before we can speak or walk, imagination is already at work. Infants lie in cribs and gaze upward, watching shadows move across walls, patterns shifting in the light. Their minds are not empty. They are busy constructing an understanding of the world, building connections between sensations and meaning. A mobile spinning overhead becomes a dance. A parent's face becomes the first story. Imagination does not wait for language or logic. It is woven into the very fabric of consciousness itself. Researchers have observed that babies as young as a few months old show signs of mental simulation. They anticipate where objects will move. They recognize patterns. They even seem to dream. In those early moments, imagination is learning to shape reality, preparing the mind for a lifetime of creation. To know that imagination begins so early is to realize it is not something taught but something inherent. It is part of being human, a gift present from the very start. Children live almost entirely within their imaginative worlds. Watch a child at play and you witness imagination in its purest form. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship. A castle, a cave beneath the sea. A stick becomes a sword, a wand, a telescope pointed toward distant worlds. For young children, the boundary between what is real and what is imagined remains beautifully thin. They do not simply pretend. They believe fully and completely in the worlds they create. Psychologists call this stage of development the pre-operational period where symbolic thinking flourishes. A child can hold a conversation with an invisible friend, host tea parties for stuffed animals, and navigate entire kingdoms that exist only in their mind. This is not escapism. It is exploration. Through imagination, children rehearse emotions, solve problems, and practice the social scripts they will need later in life. Every fantasy is a lesson. Every imagined adventure builds cognitive architecture that will support thinking for decades to come. The richness of childhood imagination is not childish. It is foundational. Daydreams occupy nearly half of our waking thoughts. Even as adults, our minds wander constantly. Studies using experience sampling, where people are asked throughout the day what they are thinking about, reveal something surprising. On average, human beings spend between 30 and 50 of their waking hours engaged in thoughts unrelated to the present moment. We daydream while walking, while waiting, while performing routine tasks. Our minds drift into memories, imagined futures, hypothetical conversations, and scenes that have never happened and may never happen. This is not distraction. It is a fundamental mode of human consciousness. Neuroscientists have identified a network in the brain called the default mode network, which becomes most active when we are not focused on external tasks. This network supports self-reflection, memory, imagination, and the construction of mental scenarios. Daydreaming, far from being idle, is the mind's way of exploring possibilities, processing emotions, and rehearsing potential futures. It allows us to step outside the present and travel through time in our thoughts. To drift into a daydream is to engage one of the most sophisticated functions of the human brain. Imagination allows us to experience what has not yet happened. One of imagination's most powerful abilities is mental time travel. We can close our eyes and vividly picture ourselves in a future moment. A conversation we will have tomorrow. A place we hope to visit someday. A goal we are working toward. This capacity to simulate experiences that have not yet occurred is uniquely human, or at least highly developed in our species. It enables planning, foresight, and the ability to learn from events that exist only as possibilities. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth may water. When you picture an embarrassing moment, you may feel a flush of discomfort. The brain does not always distinguish sharply between imagined and actual experience. This blurring is not a flaw. It is a feature. It allows us to prepare emotionally and cognitively for events before they arrive. Athletes use this principle when they visualize successful performances. Students use it when they mentally rehearse presentations. Imagination becomes a bridge between now and later, letting us live in multiple timelines at once. The brain treats imagined experiences much like real ones. Functional brain imaging studies have shown something remarkable. When people imagine performing an action, such as playing a piano or shooting a basketball, many of the same neural regions activate as when they actually perform that action. The motor cortex lights up. The sensory areas respond. The brain rehearses movement even when the body stays still. This is why mental practice can genuinely improve physical skills. Visualizing a task strengthens the neural pathways associated with it, making the actual performance smoother and more automatic. The same principle applies to emotions and memories. Imagining a joyful scene can trigger the release of neurotransmitters associated with happiness. Imagining a fearful scenario can activate the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. In this sense, imagination is not separate from reality. It is a form of simulated reality, a way the brain models the world internally. What we imagine shapes how we think, how we feel, and how we act. The mind does not distinguish as sharply as we might assume between the vividly imagined and the physically experienced. Creative breakthroughs often arrive during moments of rest. Many of history's greatest ideas did not emerge during intense focus, but during moments of relaxation. Archimedes discovered principles of buoyancy while bathing. Isaac Newton conceived ideas about gravity while sitting beneath a tree. Auguste Kekule envisioned the structure of the benzene molecule in a daydream about a snake biting its own tail. These stories illustrate a pattern. When the mind is allowed to wander, when pressure is released and attention drifts, imagination finds room to make unexpected connections. Neuroscientists suggest that this is because the default mode network active during rest, and mind wandering facilitates associative thinking. It links distant concepts, retrieves forgotten memories, and recombines ideas in novel ways. Focused work is essential, but so is unfocused thought. Breakthroughs require both effort and ease, concentration and release. The quiet moments when we let the mind roam freely are not unproductive. They are often when imagination does its deepest work, quietly assembling insights that will emerge later as sudden clarity. Dreams are imagination unbound by waking logic. Every night as we sleep, imagination takes full control. Dreams unfold in vivid scenes, shifting landscapes, impossible events. We fly without wings. We speak to people long gone. We find ourselves in places we have never been, facing situations that make no logical sense, yet feel entirely real in the moment. During REM sleep, the brain's rational centers, particularly the prefrontal cortex, become less active while emotional and memory processing regions remain engaged. This creates a mental state where associations flow freely, unfiltered by logic or self-criticism. Dreams are imagination released from the constraints of waking thought. They allow the mind to explore emotions, process experiences, and make connections that conscious reasoning might never permit. Some psychologists view dreams as the brain's way of consolidating memories and working through unresolved feelings. Others see them as mental play, a safe space where the mind experiments with scenarios without real-world consequences. Whatever their ultimate purpose, dreams reveal imagination in its wildest, most unrestrained form. Each night we become poets, filmmakers, and storytellers, crafting narratives we will barely remember by morning. Lucid dreaming lets some people direct their own dreams. Occasionally, a dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming while still asleep. This state, called lucid dreaming, allows a degree of conscious control over the dream environment. People who experience lucid dreams report being able to fly at will, change the scenery, or interact with dream characters with intention. It is imagination meeting awareness, a fusion of conscious direction and unconscious creativity. Researchers have confirmed lucid dreaming through sleep studies, observing eye movements that match predetermined signals from dreamers. Some people cultivate lucid dreaming through techniques like reality testing or keeping dream journals. The experience offers a unique window into the mind's creative processes, showing how imagination can be both spontaneous and directed. In lucid dreams, the boundaries between creator and creation blur. The dreamer is both the author and the character, shaping a world that simultaneously shapes them. It is a reminder that even in sleep, the mind retains a kind of agency, a quiet thread of awareness woven into the fabric of imagination. Imagination is essential for empathy and understanding others. To imagine is not only to create fictional worlds, it is also to step into the experiences of others. When you read about someone's hardship and feel compassion, imagination is at work. When you listen to a friend describe their day and picture the scenes they describe, imagination bridges the gap between minds. Empathy relies on the ability to simulate another person's thoughts and feelings to mentally inhabit their perspective. Mirror neurons in the brain may play a role firing both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. But beyond neuroscience, empathy is a deeply imaginative act. It requires us to construct a mental model of another's inner life to ask what we might feel in their place. This is why stories, whether told through books, films, or conversation, are so powerful. They invite us to imagine ourselves as someone else, expanding our emotional range and deepening our connection to humanity. Imagination is not just creative. It is also compassionate. It allows us to feel with others, to understand perspectives beyond our own, to recognize the shared threads of experience that connect all people. Visualization can reduce stress and calm the nervous system when the mind is anxious, racing with worries and what-ifs. Imagination can become a tool for healing. Guided visualization, a technique used in therapy and meditation, invites people to imagine calming scenes in vivid detail. A quiet beach, a forest at dawn, a warm, safe room. As the mind focuses on these peaceful images, the body responds. Heart rate slows, breathing deepens, muscles release tension. The brain, engaging its imaginative faculties, begins to shift out of fight or flight mode and into a state of rest and repair. This is not mere distraction. Neuroimaging studies show that visualization activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and recovery. Imagining safety can create a felt sense of safety even when external circumstances remain unchanged. Athletes use visualization to manage performance anxiety. Patients use it to cope with pain. Meditators use it to cultivate inner peace. Imagination, so often associated with creativity and play, is also a profound instrument of well-being. It can transform how we feel, bringing calm to chaos and stillness to a restless mind. Children with imaginary friends show signs of advanced social skills. Parents sometimes worry when a child develops an invisible companion, but research suggests there is no cause for concern. Studies have found that children with imaginary friends often demonstrate stronger social understanding, greater empathy, and more advanced language skills than their peers. Creating and interacting with an imaginary friend requires sophisticated cognitive work. The child must maintain a consistent personality for this invisible companion, anticipate their reactions, and navigate a relationship that exists entirely in the mind. This is imagination as social rehearsal. It allows children to practice cooperation, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation in a safe, controlled environment. The imaginary friend becomes a tool for exploring feelings and trying out different social roles. Most children eventually outgrow these companions as their real-world social circles expand, but the skills developed through imaginative play remain. Far from being a sign of loneliness or confusion, imaginary friends reflect a rich inner life and a mind actively engaged in understanding the complexities of relationships. Imagination helps us solve problems by exploring possibilities. When faced with a challenge, the mind does not only analyze, it imagines. It asks, what if we tried this? What might happen if we approached it differently? Problem solving is deeply imaginative, requiring the ability to envision alternatives, to mentally test solutions before committing to action. Engineers imagine structures before they are built. Scientists imagine hypotheses before they are tested. Writers imagine plots before they are written. In each case, imagination allows exploration without risk. Ideas can be tried, discarded, or refined entirely in the mind. This mental simulation saves time, resources, and effort. It also opens possibilities that linear thinking might miss. By imagining multiple pathways, the mind can discover creative solutions that logic alone would never reach. Imagination transforms obstacles into puzzles and problems into opportunities for innovation. It is the engine of progress, the force that allows humanity to move beyond what is and reach toward what could be. Stories are among the oldest uses of imagination. Long before written language, humans gathered around fires and told stories, tales of hunts, of journeys, of gods and ancestors. These stories were not merely entertainment. They were how knowledge was preserved, how values were transmitted, how communities made sense of the world. Storytelling is imagination made shared. It allows one person's mental world to be transferred into the minds of others, creating collective experiences and common meaning. Every culture on Earth has storytelling traditions, suggesting that narrative is a fundamental human need. Stories help us understand cause and effect, moral consequences, and the patterns that shape life. They teach empathy by letting us experience events from perspectives not our own. They provide comfort by framing suffering within larger narratives of meaning. And they inspire hope by showing that change, growth, and resolution are possible. Imagination through story becomes a bridge between individuals and across generations. It is how we remember the past, navigate the present, and envision the future together. Metaphors reveal how imagination shapes language itself. Language is not just a tool for labeling reality. It is saturated with imagination. When we say time flies, we are imagining time as a bird. When we speak of grasping an idea, we imagine thought as a physical object. These metaphors are so embedded in everyday speech that we barely notice them. Yet they reveal how deeply imagination structures human understanding. Cognitive linguists argue that metaphor is not decorative but foundational. Abstract concepts which cannot be directly perceived are understood through imaginative mappings onto concrete experiences. Love is a journey. Arguments are wars. Life is a story. These metaphors shape how we think and feel about these concepts. They are not arbitrary. They reflect patterns in embodied experience, the ways our brains make sense of the world. Imagination through metaphor becomes the scaffolding of meaning itself. It allows us to think beyond the literal, to grasp ideas that would otherwise remain intangible. Every time we speak, we engage imagination, weaving the abstract and the concrete into a seamless fabric of understanding. Mental imagery varies greatly from person to person. Close your eyes and picture an apple. Some people see a vivid, almost photographic image. They can rotate it mentally, see the shine on its skin, even imagine the texture and weight. Others see only a vague outline, a dim impression. Still others report seeing nothing at all, experiencing the concept of an apple without any visual component. This variation is known as imagery vividness, and it exists on a spectrum. On one end are hyperphantasics, people with extraordinarily vivid mental imagery. On the other end are aphantasics, people who experience little or no visual imagery. Neither extreme is better or worse. They are simply different ways the mind represents information. Aphantastics, for instance, may rely more on conceptual or verbal thinking, and many lead rich creative lives without visual imagination. This diversity reminds us that imagination is not one thing but many. It takes different forms in different minds shaped by neurology, experience, and individual variation. There is no single correct way to imagine. Some people think primarily in images, others in words. Imagination manifests differently depending on how a person's mind works. Some individuals think predominantly in pictures. When they recall a memory, they see scenes. When they plan, they visualize outcomes. Others think primarily in words, experiencing thoughts as an internal monologue, sentences forming in the mind. Still others think in abstract patterns, spatial relationships, emotions, or even sounds and music. These differences influence how people learn, create, and communicate. A visual thinker might sketch ideas or use diagrams. A verbal thinker might write lists or talk through problems. Understanding your own imaginative style can help you work with your mind rather than against it. It also fosters empathy for others whose thinking feels foreign. When someone says they cannot picture something you find easy to visualize, they are not being difficult. They are simply navigating imagination through a different mode. The mind's flexibility is astonishing, capable of representing the same reality in countless ways, each valid and uniquely suited to the person experiencing it. Imagination allows us to travel mentally through time and space. You can close your eyes right now and place yourself anywhere. A childhood home, a distant country, a moment years in the past, or a future you hope to see. This ability to mentally transport ourselves is called episodic simulation, and it relies on the same brain networks involved in memory. When we imagine the future, we draw on fragments of past experience, recombining them into new scenarios. When we imagine distant places, we piece together details from photographs, descriptions, and prior travel. The mind becomes a time machine and a teleporter, unconstrained by the here and now. This capacity is more than a curiosity. It is essential for planning, decision-making, and meaning-making. By imagining ourselves in different times and places, we can evaluate choices, anticipate consequences, and connect our present actions to long-term goals. We can also find solace. When the present feels difficult, imagination offers escape and perspective, reminding us that this moment is not the only moment. And this place is not the only place. The mind can always wander free. Imagination declines slightly with age but never disappears. There is a common belief that imagination fades as we grow older, replaced by rigid practicality. While it is true that imaginative play becomes less frequent in adulthood and certain cognitive functions decline with age, imagination itself does not vanish. Older adults retain the ability to daydream, visualize, and create. Many continue producing creative work well into their later years. What changes is often not capacity, but permission. Society encourages children to imagine freely, but expects adults to be serious and productive. Many adults internalize this message, setting aside imaginative pursuits in favor of responsibilities. Yet, when older adults are given opportunities and encouragement, they often rediscover imaginative joy. Art classes, storytelling groups, and creative hobbies flourish in retirement communities. The brain remains capable of imagination throughout life, though the contexts and expressions may shift. Wisdom, in fact, can enhance certain forms of imagination. Older adults bring a lifetime of experience to their imaginative work, creating with depth, nuance, and perspective that youth cannot yet access. Imagination is not the province of the young alone. It is a lifelong companion. Boredom often sparks imaginative thought. In a world filled with constant stimulation, boredom has become rare. Yet boredom, uncomfortable as it feels, serves an important function. When external inputs cease and the mind has nothing immediate to process, it begins to wander. Ideas bubble up, memories surface, the imagination activates to fill the void. Research suggests that boredom can enhance creativity by forcing the mind to generate its own entertainment. Children left to play without structured activities often invent elaborate games. Adults stuck in waiting rooms might suddenly have insights about problems they had set aside. Boredom creates a kind of cognitive vacuum and imagination rushes in to fill it. This is why overstimulation, while pleasant in the moment, can sometimes stifle creativity. When every second is occupied by screens, notifications, and tasks, the mind has no space to drift. Imagination thrives in stillness. In the gaps between activities, in the quiet moments when there is nothing to do but think. To embrace boredom, even briefly, is to give imagination room to breathe. Imagination is both a gift and a skill that can be nurtured. While everyone is born with the capacity to imagine, the richness and flexibility of imagination can be developed like a muscle. It strengthens with use. Engaging in creative activities, reading fiction, exploring new environments, and allowing time for unstructured thought all nourish imagination. Conversely, rigid routines, constant distraction, and fear of failure can constrain it. Children raised in environments that encourage curiosity and play tend to develop more robust imaginative abilities. Adults who make time for creative pursuits, even as hobbies, often find their problem-solving and emotional resilience improve. Schools and workplaces that value innovation provide opportunities for imaginative thinking to flourish. Nurturing imagination is not about forcing creativity, but about creating conditions where it can emerge naturally. This means protecting time for rest, play, and exploration. It means tolerating ambiguity and welcoming mistakes. It means recognizing that imagination is not frivolous but essential, a capacity worth cultivating throughout life. When we honor imagination, we honor the fullness of human potential. Reading fiction activates the same brain regions as real experience. When you read a novel, something extraordinary happens. The words on the page dissolve and you find yourself somewhere else. You see characters, hear dialogue, feel emotions. Neuroscientific studies using fMRI scans have shown that reading about actions, sensations, and emotions activates the corresponding areas of the brain as if you were experiencing them directly. Reading about running activates motor regions. Reading about textures activates sensory cortex. Reading about grief activates emotional centers. This is imagination translating symbols into simulated experience. Fiction becomes a kind of virtual reality, one that requires no technology beyond language and the human mind. Through stories we live lives we will never lead, visit places we will never go, and understand perspectives far removed from our own. This is why reading builds empathy and expands worldview. It is practice in imagining other minds, other realities. Every book is an invitation to step outside yourself and inhabit another consciousness, if only for a while. The quiet act of reading is among the most imaginatively immersive experiences available to us. Music evokes vivid imagery and emotional landscapes. Sound has a unique power to stir imagination. A melody can summon memories, places, and feelings without a single word. Composers and musicians create sonic worlds, and listeners fill them with personal imagery. One person hears a symphony and imagines a storm. Another hears the same piece and pictures a peaceful meadow. Music provides structure, emotion, and atmosphere, but the specific images it evokes are shaped by each listener's imagination. This is why music can feel so deeply personal. It speaks to emotions that words cannot capture, and imagination translates those emotions into scenes, sensations, and stories. Film composers understand this, using music to guide the viewer's emotional journey. But even without visuals, music alone can transport the mind. A single song can return you to a moment years ago, complete with sights, sounds, and feelings. Music and imagination are partners, each amplifying the other, creating experiences richer than either could produce alone. Some cultures emphasize imagination more than others. Cultural values shape how imagination is encouraged and expressed. In some societies, creative play and individual self-expression are highly prized. Children are given time and freedom to explore imaginative pursuits. In others, conformity and practical skills are prioritized and imaginative activities are seen as less important. These differences are not inherently good or bad, but they influence how people relate to their own imaginations. Western cultures, particularly in recent decades, have celebrated creativity and innovation, leading to educational systems that incorporate arts and open-ended learning. Indigenous cultures often weave imagination into storytelling and oral traditions, preserving history and teaching values through myth and narrative. Eastern philosophies sometimes emphasize mindfulness and present moment awareness, which can coexist with but differ from Western-style imaginative daydreaming. Understanding these cultural variations helps us see imagination not as a single universal trait but as something shaped by context, values, and tradition. Every culture imagines, but the forms and purposes of imagination vary beautifully across humanity. Imagination fuels scientific discovery as much as artistic creation. There is a misconception that imagination belongs only to artists and writers, while science relies solely on logic and observation. In truth, science is deeply imaginative. Einstein famously conducted thought experiments imagining what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light. Darwin imagined the slow accumulation of tiny changes across countless generations, envisioning a tree of life branching through deep time. Every scientific hypothesis begins as an imaginative leap, a what-if that precedes evidence. Scientists imagine invisible forces, particles too small to see, and events that occurred billions of years ago. They construct mental models of phenomena they cannot directly observe, then test those models against reality. The scientific method itself is a dialogue between imagination and evidence, where creative speculation is disciplined by rigorous testing. Far from being opposites, imagination and reason are partners in the pursuit of understanding. Both artists and scientists explore the unknown. They simply use different tools to bring their visions into the world. Albert Einstein valued imagination above knowledge. Einstein once wrote that imagination is more important than knowledge. Foreknowledge is limited to what we know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress and giving birth to evolution. This was not a dismissal of knowledge, but a recognition of imagination's generative power. Knowledge tells us what is. Imagination shows us what could be. Without imagination, science would stagnate, repeating what is already known. With it, new questions arise, new possibilities open, and understanding expands. Einstein's own work exemplifies this principle. His theories of relativity emerged not from laboratory experiments, but from imaginative thought, from envisioning himself in impossible scenarios, and following the logic to its conclusions. Only later were his ideas confirmed through observation. His genius lay not only in his intellect but in his willingness to imagine beyond the boundaries of conventional thought. He reminds us that imagination is not a luxury but a necessity, not a distraction from serious work but the very engine that drives it forward. The concept of zero required imagination to invent. Numbers seem objective, eternal, as if they have always existed. But mathematical concepts are human inventions, products of imagination. The number zero, for instance, was not obvious. Many ancient civilizations had no symbol for it. They could count objects, but the idea of representing nothing, of giving absence a presence, required a leap of abstract imagination. Indian mathematicians in the 5th century developed the concept of zero as both a placeholder and a number in its own right. This imaginative breakthrough revolutionized mathematics, enabling positional notation and making complex calculations possible. Zero is a paradox, something that is nothing, and imagining it required thinking beyond the concrete and tangible. Today, zero is foundational to mathematics, computer science, and physics. It is a reminder that even the most logical systems rest on imaginative foundations, on the human capacity to conceive of things that do not exist in the physical world and grant them meaning and utility. Imaginary numbers are essential to engineering and physics. The name imaginary numbers sounds fanciful, as if they belong to fantasy rather than science. Yet these mathematical constructs based on the square root of -1 are indispensable in real-world applications. Electrical engineers use imaginary numbers to model alternating current. Physicists use them in quantum mechanics to describe wave functions. They are tools for representing phenomena that oscillate, rotate, or exist in complex states. Imaginary numbers were initially met with skepticism. How could a number multiplied by itself produce a negative result, something impossible in the realm of real numbers? It required imagination to accept and explore this abstract concept, to see it not as nonsense but as a different kind of sense. Today, imaginary numbers are routine, their strangeness long absorbed into the fabric of mathematics. They illustrate a profound truth. Imagination, even when it seems to depart from reality, often circles back to illuminate it in unexpected ways. The imaginary becomes indispensable to understanding the real. Architects imagine structures before a single stone is laid. Before a building rises, it exists entirely in imagination. Architects envision spaces, sketch plans, and create models. All before construction begins, they must imagine not only how a structure will look, but how it will feel to inhabit, how light will move through it, how people will navigate its rooms. This is imagination in service of function, beauty, and human experience. Ancient builders imagined cathedrals whose completion would take generations. Modern architects imagine towers that defy gravity, bridges that span impossible distances, and homes that blend seamlessly with nature. Each structure begins as a thought, a vision held in the mind and gradually translated into blueprints, materials, and form. Imagination allows architecture to be more than mere shelter. It becomes art, innovation, and expression. Every skyline, every monument, every humble dwelling reflects someone's imaginative vision made solid. Proof that what begins in the mind can reshape the physical world. Urban planners imagine entire cities that do not yet exist. On an even grander scale, urban planners use imagination to envision entire communities. They imagine how streets will flow, where parks will provide green space, how neighborhoods will develop over decades. These imaginative projections must account for population growth, environmental sustainability, economic vitality, and social equity. Planning a city is an exercise in long-term imagination, anticipating needs and challenges years or even generations in advance. Some cities like Brasilia or Chandigarh were designed almost entirely from imagination. Planned communities built where none existed before. Others evolved gradually, but even then, zoning laws, public transit systems, and infrastructure projects reflect imaginative visions of what a city could become. When urban planning succeeds, it creates spaces where people thrive. When it fails, it produces congestion, inequality, and blight. Imagination wielded wisely and inclusively shapes the environments where millions live. The cities we inhabit are not inevitable. They are imagined into being. Choices made visible in concrete, steel, and glass. Imagination lets us rehearse the future and learn from imagined mistakes. One of imagination's most practical functions is its role in planning and preparation. By imagining future scenarios, we can anticipate obstacles and devise solutions before encountering them. A surgeon imagines a procedure step by step, visualizing potential complications. A negotiator imagines the other party's perspective, preparing counterarguments. A parent imagines how a child might react, planning responses to ease a difficult conversation. This mental rehearsal improves performance and reduces anxiety. It allows us to make mistakes in imagination, where the cost is zero rather than in reality where stakes may be high. Imagination becomes a testing ground, a safe space for trial and error. It also enables contingency planning by imagining multiple possible futures. We can prepare for uncertainty, developing flexible strategies that adapt to changing circumstances. In this way, imagination is not escapist but deeply pragmatic. It equips us to navigate a complex, unpredictable world with greater skill and confidence. Virtual reality technology extends imagination into shared digital worlds. For most of history, imaginative worlds were private, accessible only to the person imagining them or communicated indirectly through art and story. Virtual reality changes this. It creates immersive digital environments that multiple people can inhabit simultaneously, extending imagination into shared interactive space. In VR, you can walk through architectural designs before they are built, explore distant planets or practice skills in simulated environments. The technology externalizes imagination, making it visible, tangible, and collaborative. While still limited by current technology, VR hints at a future where imaginative experiences can be crafted and shared as easily as photographs. This raises profound questions. If we can create perfect simulated realities, how will we value physical experience? If imagination can be externalized and commodified, what happens to the private personal nature of inner worlds? These are not questions with easy answers, but they underscore how deeply imagination is woven into human culture and how technology continually reshapes its possibilities. Imagination helps us find meaning in randomness and pattern in chaos. The human mind is a pattern-seeking instrument. We see faces in clouds, hear voices in static, find shapes in constellations of stars. This tendency, called pareidolia, is imagination working automatically, filling in gaps and imposing structure on ambiguous stimuli. It reflects a deeper truth. Imagination helps us make sense of a world that is often confusing, chaotic, and incomplete. We construct narratives to explain events, invent reasons for outcomes, and project order onto randomness. Sometimes this leads us astray, as when we see conspiracies where none exist or assign meaning to coincidences. But often it helps us navigate complexity. By imagining connections and patterns, we generate hypotheses, solve problems, and create frameworks for understanding. Science itself began with humans imagining order behind natural phenomena, gods in thunder, spirits in rivers, and eventually laws governing motion and matter. Imagination is the bridge between chaos and comprehension, the tool we use to transform raw experience into meaningful stories. Religious and spiritual traditions are built on imaginative visions. Across cultures and throughout history, humans have imagined realms beyond the physical. Heavens and hells, gods and spirits, reincarnation and enlightenment. These concepts are not empirical observations but imaginative constructs, visions of transcendence, purpose, and ultimate meaning. Whether one views them as literal truths or symbolic frameworks, they reveal imagination's profound role in shaping human belief and behavior. Religious texts are filled with imaginative imagery, parables, and visions. Prophets describe encounters with the divine. Mystics speak of ineffable experiences. Rituals enact symbolic dramas, transforming ordinary actions into sacred ones. Through imagination, the invisible becomes approachable, the infinite becomes personal, and abstract principles become lived experiences. Religion offers communities shared imaginative frameworks, narratives that bind individuals into collective identity and purpose. Even in secular contexts, people imagine meaning, purpose, and connection. Constructing personal philosophies and values, imagination in this sense is deeply existential. It is how we answer the question of what it all means. Mythology preserves ancient imaginative wisdom. Long before science explained thunder, disease, or the changing seasons, humans imagined stories to make sense of them. Myths are humanity's earliest attempts to understand the world through imagination. They personified forces of nature, dramatized moral lessons, and explored the mysteries of existence. Though we now have scientific explanations, myths remain powerful because they address truths that facts alone cannot capture. They speak to emotions, values, and the human condition. The hero's journey, a narrative pattern found in myths worldwide, reflects universal experiences of growth, struggle, and transformation. Myths about creation explore questions of origin and purpose. Myths about death grapple with mortality and what lies beyond. These stories endure because they resonate with imaginative truths, insights into how life feels rather than just how it works. Studying mythology is not a retreat into superstition, but an exploration of how imagination has always been central to meaning-making. The myths we inherit shape our dreams, our stories, and our understanding of ourselves. Fairy tales teach lessons through symbolic imagination. Fairy tales often seem simple, stories for children about magic and adventure, but their symbolic richness runs deep. A dark forest represents the unknown, the dangerous journey every person must take. A wicked stepmother embodies betrayal and rejection. A prince or princess symbolizes the self we hope to become whole and worthy. Psychologists like Bruno Bettelheim have argued that fairy tales help children process complex emotions and fears through symbolic narrative. By imagining characters who face trials and emerge transformed, children rehearse resilience, courage, and hope. The imagination at work in fairy tales is not literal but metaphorical, expressing inner truths through external adventure. Adults too find meaning in these stories, recognizing archetypal patterns that mirror their own experiences. Fairy tales are imaginative vessels carrying wisdom across generations in forms that engage the heart as much as the mind. They remind us that not all knowledge is factual. Some is symbolic, accessible only through the language of imagination. Imagination allows us to conceive of justice, freedom, and human rights. Abstract ideals like justice and equality do not exist in nature. They are imaginative constructs, visions of how the world could and should be. Before revolutions, reformers must imagine a better society. Before laws change, advocates must imagine fairer systems. The entire edifice of human rights rests on imagination, on the capacity to envision a world where all people are treated with dignity, even when current reality falls far short. The American Declaration of Independence imagined equality as self-evident. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights imagined fundamental freedoms as universal. These documents did not describe the world as it was but as it could be, using imagination to articulate aspirations and guide action. Social progress requires imaginative vision. Activists imagine futures where injustice is overcome. Visionaries imagine institutions that serve rather than oppress. Without imagination, we would be trapped in the status quo, unable to conceive alternatives. Imagination is thus not only creative but also moral and political, a force that shapes societies and drives history forward toward ideals that begin as dreams. Utopian thinking explores imaginative possibilities for better worlds. Throughout history, philosophers and writers have imagined ideal societies, utopias where human flourishing is maximized. Plato's Republic, Thomas More's Utopia, and countless others sketch visions of perfect governance, equitable distribution, and harmonious living. These works are exercises in imaginative exploration, asking, what if we could start over? What if we organize society around different principles? While no utopia has ever been realized and some attempts have ended disastrously, utopian thinking serves a vital function. It expands the range of what seems possible, challenging assumptions and inspiring reforms. Even flawed utopian visions contribute to progress by provoking thought and debate. Dystopian literature, Utopia's dark twin, imagines futures gone wrong. Cautionary tales that warn against certain paths. Both genres engage imagination to explore consequences, possibilities, and values. They remind us that the future is not fixed. It is shaped by choices, visions, and the collective imagination of societies willing to dream beyond the present. Imagination plays a role in moral reasoning and ethical dilemmas. When faced with a moral choice, we often imagine outcomes. What would happen if I acted this way? How would others be affected? Imagination allows us to simulate scenarios, weighing consequences before we decide. Philosophers use thought experiments, imaginative scenarios designed to test moral intuitions. The trolley problem, for instance, asks whether it is permissible to sacrifice one person to save 5. There is no real trolley, but imagining the scenario reveals how we think about harm, intention, and responsibility. Imagination in ethics is not mere speculation. It is a tool for clarifying values and reasoning through complexity. It also cultivates empathy, helping us imagine the experiences of those affected by our choices. When we consider how an action might hurt or help someone, we are using imagination to extend moral consideration beyond ourselves. Ethical imagination, the capacity to envision just and compassionate responses to difficult situations, is essential for navigating a world filled with competing needs, interests, and values. Children's play is imagination in action. Watch children play and you witness imagination unfolding in real time. They transform sticks into swords, blankets into fortresses, and themselves into heroes, animals, or explorers. This is not mere entertainment. Play is how children learn to navigate the world. Through imaginative play, they practice social roles, experiment with rules, and explore emotions in safe contexts. A child playing house rehearses caregiving. A child pretending to be a teacher practices authority and instruction. Conflict arises, negotiation happens, and resolution is found. All within the frame of pretend. Psychologists recognize play as essential for cognitive, social, and emotional development. It builds creativity, problem-solving skills, and emotional regulation. In a sense, play is the purest form of imagination, unconstrained by external goals or judgments. It is creation for its own sake, joyful and free. As adults, we often lose this playful relationship with imagination, but it remains accessible. To play even as an adult is to reconnect with imagination's most spontaneous, delightful expression. Improvisation teaches imagination to respond spontaneously. In improvisational theater, performers create scenes without scripts, building narratives in real time based on audience suggestions and each other's contributions. This requires rapid imaginative thinking, the ability to generate ideas, adapt to unexpected turns, and collaborate seamlessly. Improvisation is imagination under pressure, spontaneous and unfiltered. It teaches valuable skills, flexibility, active listening, and the willingness to accept and build on others' ideas. The core principle of improved. Yes. And encourages performers to accept what is offered and add to it, creating a collaborative flow. This mindset extends beyond theater. In conversations, problem-solving, and creative work, the ability to respond imaginatively to the unexpected is invaluable. Improvisation reminds us that imagination is not only about solitary dreaming, but also about dynamic interaction, co-creation, and the joy of making something new with others in the moment. Imagination can become maladaptive when it fuels excessive worry. While imagination is generally beneficial, it can sometimes work against us. Anxiety often involves vivid imaginings of worst-case scenarios. The mind conjures disasters that have not happened and may never happen, triggering real fear and distress. This is imagination misapplied, turned toward threat rather than possibility. Chronic worry is essentially an overactive imagination focused on danger, replaying hypothetical catastrophes in exhaustive detail. For people with anxiety disorders, imagination becomes a source of suffering rather than creativity or insight. Therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy help individuals recognize these imaginative spirals and redirect them. Mindfulness practices encourage returning attention to the present moment rather than dwelling in imagined futures. Understanding that worry is imagination run amok can be empowering. It means the same capacity that creates problems can be harnessed to envision solutions, calm, and hope. Imagination is a powerful tool, and like any tool, its value depends on how it is used. Intrusive thoughts are unwanted imaginings most people experience. Almost everyone has experienced an intrusive thought, a sudden unwanted mental image or idea that feels disturbing or bizarre. These thoughts can involve harm, taboo subjects, or irrational fears. They are not reflections of desire or intent, but rather the mind's tendency to generate thoughts spontaneously without conscious control. Intrusive thoughts can be distressing, leading people to question their own character. But they are a normal part of human psychology, a byproduct of an imaginative mind that produces content continuously. The key is not to suppress these thoughts, which often makes them more persistent, but to recognize them as mental noise, transient, and meaningless. For most people, intrusive thoughts come and go without issue. For those with obsessive-compulsive disorder, however, they can become a central source of distress, leading to compulsive behaviors aimed at neutralizing imagined threats. Understanding intrusive thoughts as a quirk of imagination helps reduce their power and the shame they can cause. Imagination underpins our sense of identity and self-concept. Who you think you are is in part an imaginative construct. Your sense of self is built from memories which are reconstructed each time you recall them and from narratives you tell about your life. You imagine yourself as a character with traits, goals, and a history. This self-concept shapes behavior, choices, and how you relate to others. Psychologists describe the self as a story, a coherent narrative that gives life meaning and continuity. But this story is not fixed. It evolves as you imagine new possibilities for who you might become. Imagination allows you to envision future selves, versions of you that do not yet exist but could with effort and time. This capacity to imagine transformation is central to growth and change. When people set goals, they are imagining desired futures. When they reflect on mistakes, they imagine better responses. The self is not a static entity, but an ongoing imaginative project shaped by memory, aspiration, and the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Nostalgia is imagination revisiting and reshaping the past. Memory and imagination are closely linked. When you remember an event, you do not replay a perfect recording. You reconstruct it, filling in gaps with plausible details. Over time, memories shift, influenced by subsequent experiences, emotions, and even other people's stories. Nostalgia is a particular form of imaginative remembering, one tinged with longing and idealization. People often remember the past as simpler, happier, more meaningful than it may have been. This is imagination softening harsh edges, selecting pleasant moments and letting go of pain. Nostalgia can be comforting, connecting us to our history and providing a sense of continuity. But it can also distort, leading to romanticized views that ignore complexity. Understanding nostalgia as an imaginative act helps us appreciate its emotional value while recognizing its limitations. The past we remember is not the past as it was, but the past as we imagine it, now shaped by who we have become and what we need from our own history. Future-oriented imagination helps us set and achieve goals. Imagination is not only about escaping the present but also about shaping it. When you set a goal, you imagine a future outcome. You picture yourself healthier, more skilled, more accomplished. This vision motivates action and guides decisions. Research in psychology shows that people who vividly imagine achieving their goals are more likely to take steps toward them. Visualization techniques used by athletes and performers harness imagination to improve outcomes. By repeatedly imagining successful performance, the brain strengthens neural pathways associated with that performance. Imagination becomes a form of mental practice, preparing the mind and body for real-world execution. This future-oriented imagination also helps with perseverance. When obstacles arise, imagining the desired outcome can renew motivation and provide direction. However, imagination alone is not enough. It must be coupled with action, planning, and effort. The most effective approach combines vivid imaginative vision with concrete steps, using imagination as both inspiration and guide. Counterfactual thinking lets us imagine alternate histories. Humans often engage in counterfactual thinking, imagining how events might have unfolded differently. What if I had taken that job? What if I had spoken up? These alternate scenarios are exercises in imagination, exploring paths not taken. Counterfactual thinking can serve multiple purposes. It can help us learn from mistakes by imagining better choices. It can prepare us for future decisions by considering consequences we did not anticipate before. It can also lead to regret and rumination, trapping us in cycles of what might have been. The key is balance. Moderate counterfactual thinking fosters insight and growth. Excessive dwelling on alternate pasts can prevent moving forward. Imagination in this context is a tool for reflection and learning. But like all tools, it requires skillful use. By imagining other possibilities, we gain perspective on our actual choices. Understanding how outcomes were shaped by decisions, circumstances, and chance. Imagination allows us to transcend our immediate circumstances. One of imagination's greatest gifts is the ability to escape, not as avoidance, but as relief and expansion. When life feels constrained, imagination offers freedom. A person in physical confinement can travel mentally to distant places. A person facing hardship can envision better times. This is not denial of reality, but a psychological resource, a way to preserve hope and maintain a sense of agency when external control is limited. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote about how prisoners who could imagine futures beyond their suffering were more likely to endure. Imagination became a lifeline, a reminder that their current condition was not permanent. This capacity to transcend the immediate moment, to hold visions of other times and places, is profoundly human. It connects us to past and future, to possibility beyond present pain. Imagination does not change external circumstances directly, but it changes our relationship to them, offering perspective, resilience, and the strength to continue. Art therapy uses imagination as a tool for healing. In therapeutic settings, Imagination becomes a means of processing trauma, exploring emotions, and fostering healing. Art therapy invites people to create images, sculptures, or other visual works, externalizing inner experiences that may be difficult to articulate in words. The act of creating engages imagination in a gentle, non-threatening way, allowing feelings to emerge and be witnessed. Therapists trained in this approach understand that the process matters more than the product. A person painting an abstract swirl of colors may be expressing grief, anger, or confusion in a form that bypasses rational thought. Imagination channeled through creative expression becomes a bridge to the unconscious, revealing insights and facilitating emotional release. This approach is used with children who have experienced trauma, veterans coping with PTSD, and individuals navigating depression or anxiety. Imagination, so often associated with joy and play, also serves as a profound instrument of recovery and transformation. Music therapy engages imagination through sound and rhythm. Just as visual art can unlock imagination, so can music. Music therapy uses sound, rhythm, and melody to engage the mind and emotions in therapeutic ways. Patients may listen to music, create it, or move to it, each activity inviting imaginative engagement. A person recovering from a stroke might use rhythm to retrain motor functions, the brain's imaginative and motor centers working together. Someone with dementia might recall long-lost memories when hearing familiar songs. Music serving as a key to locked rooms of the mind. Children with autism may use music to explore social interaction and emotional expression in nonverbal ways. Music therapy recognizes that imagination responds powerfully to sound, and that this response can be harnessed for healing. The vibrations, patterns, and emotional resonance of music reach parts of the brain and psyche that words and logic cannot, making it a uniquely valuable tool in therapy and care. Writing therapy invites imaginative exploration of inner life. Writing, whether journaling, poetry, or narrative, engages imagination in structured reflection. Writing therapy encourages individuals to put thoughts and feelings into words, creating distance and clarity. By narrating experiences, people often discover new perspectives, connections, and meanings. Imagination shapes how we frame our stories. Two people might experience the same event, but tell vastly different stories about it, each shaped by interpretation, focus, and narrative structure. Writing allows deliberate reshaping of these narratives. A person might write about a difficult experience from multiple perspectives, imagining how others involved might have felt or seen the situation. This imaginative empathy can soften bitterness, foster understanding, and promote forgiveness. Expressive writing has been shown to reduce stress, improve mood, and even enhance physical health by engaging imagination through words. Writing therapy helps individuals process emotions, gain insight, and construct narratives that support healing and growth. Imagination forms the basis of cognitive behavioral techniques. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective therapeutic approaches, relies heavily on imagination. Techniques like cognitive restructuring invite clients to imagine alternative interpretations of events, challenging negative thought patterns. Exposure therapy uses imagination to help people confront fears in controlled, gradual ways. A person afraid of flying might begin by imagining sitting in an airport, then boarding a plane, then taking off, building tolerance step by step. This imaginative exposure activates the same fear responses as real situations, but in a safe context where they can be managed. Over time, the brain learns that the feared scenario is not as dangerous as imagined and anxiety diminishes. Imagination becomes a rehearsal space for new ways of thinking, feeling, and responding. It allows change to begin in the mind before extending into behavior, making it a powerful engine of psychological transformation. Mindfulness practices quiet the imaginative mind to cultivate presence. While much of this exploration celebrates imagination, some contemplative traditions emphasize its opposite, the cultivation of presence and the quieting of mental chatter. Mindfulness meditation teaches practitioners to observe thoughts without engaging them, to notice when the mind wanders into imagination, past or future, and gently return attention to the present moment. This is not a rejection of imagination, but a recognition of balance. Constant imaginative activity can be exhausting, pulling attention away from the richness of immediate experience. Mindfulness offers rest from the relentless generating of thoughts, scenarios, and narratives. It creates space for simply being without the need to imagine, plan, or remember. Paradoxically, this quieting of imagination can deepen creativity. Many artists, writers, and thinkers find that periods of mindful presence allow insights to arise naturally, free from the strain of forced imagination. Imagination and mindfulness are not enemies but complements, each enhancing the other when held in balance. Guided meditation uses imaginative journeys to promote relaxation. Some meditative practices embrace imagination rather than quieting it. Guided meditations lead participants through imagined landscapes, inviting them to visualize peaceful scenes in vivid detail. You might be asked to imagine walking through a forest, feeling the soft earth beneath your feet, hearing bird song, and seeing sunlight filtering through leaves. This imaginative immersion activates the relaxation response, lowering heart rate, reducing stress hormones, and calming the nervous system. The mind engaged in constructing a pleasant scenario cannot simultaneously worry or ruminate. Imagination becomes an anchor, a gentle focus that soothes and restores. These practices are used in stress management, pain relief, and sleep therapy. They demonstrate imagination's therapeutic versatility, its capacity to serve not only creativity and problem-solving, but also peace, healing, and rest. The same mind that can conjure anxieties can also conjure sanctuaries, places of safety and calm accessible anytime, anywhere through the simple act of imagining. Hypnosis relies on focused imagination and suggestibility. Hypnosis, often misunderstood and dramatized, is essentially a state of focused attention and heightened suggestibility where imagination plays a central role. In therapeutic hypnosis, a practitioner guides a person into a relaxed, focused state and offers suggestions that the person's imagination then elaborates. Someone trying to quit smoking might imagine cigarettes as unappealing, even nauseating. Someone managing pain might imagine the sensation diminishing, becoming distant and manageable. The effectiveness of hypnosis varies widely among individuals, with some highly responsive and others less so. But for those who respond, it demonstrates imagination's influence over perception, behavior, and even physical sensation. The boundary between imagination and reality becomes permeable. What is vividly imagined can feel real, and this felt reality can produce tangible changes in mood, habit, and experience. Hypnosis is a reminder that imagination is not separate from the body or the world, but deeply interwoven with how we experience both. Before we drift any further, here is something worth staying awake for a little longer. Your mind has the power to heal you, or to harm you, using nothing but belief alone. What you are about to hear may change the way you think about medicine, and about yourself, for good. Placebo effects show imagination influencing physical health. Perhaps the most striking evidence of imagination's power over the body is the placebo effect. When people believe they are receiving treatment, even if the treatment is inert, they often experience real improvement. A sugar pill believed to be a painkiller can reduce pain. A sham surgery can alleviate symptoms. These effects are not merely psychological in the dismissive sense. They involve measurable changes, reduced inflammation, released endorphins, altered brain activity. What mediates these changes is belief and expectation forms of imagination. The mind imagines healing and the body responds. This does not mean all illness is imaginary or that positive thinking cures disease, but it does reveal how deeply imagination is embedded in health and healing. Expectation, hope, and belief. All imaginative states shape outcomes in ways science is still working to fully understand. The placebo effect is a humbling reminder that the mind and body are not separate systems but a unified whole where imagination plays a role in wellness and recovery. Nocebo effects demonstrate imagination's potential for harm. Just as imagination can heal, it can also harm. The nocebo effect occurs when negative expectations lead to negative outcomes. If someone believes a harmless substance will cause side effects, they may experience those effects. Headaches, nausea, fatigue, even though no active ingredient caused them. This is imagination manifesting as physical suffering. Nocebo effects highlight a troubling dimension of imagination's power. Worry, fear, and negative expectation can become self-fulfilling. A person convinced they will fail may become so anxious that failure becomes more likely. Someone expecting pain may perceive ambiguous sensations as painful. This is not weakness or manipulation. It is the mind's profound influence over experience. Recognizing nocebo effects underscores the importance of cultivating healthy, balanced imagination. Fear and catastrophic thinking are not harmless mental habits. They shape reality often in ways that reinforce the very outcomes we dread. Awareness of this dynamic is the first step toward redirecting imagination toward more constructive, hopeful visions. Imagination is constrained by knowledge and experience. While imagination feels limitless, it is shaped by what we know and have experienced. It is difficult to imagine something entirely outside the bounds of your knowledge. Even the most fantastical creatures in mythology are recombinations of familiar elements. A dragon is a reptile with wings. A centaur is human and horse. True novelty is rare. Most imagination works by blending, exaggerating, or rearranging existing concepts. This is why expanding knowledge expands imagination. The more you learn, the more raw material your imagination has to work with. Reading widely, traveling, learning new skills, all feed the imaginative faculty with fresh inputs. Conversely, narrow experience can limit imagination, not in capacity, but in content. Someone who has never left their hometown may struggle to imagine distant cultures vividly. This is not a flaw, but a reminder that imagination, though powerful, is not independent of the world. It grows richer when nourished by diverse experience and learning. And it flourishes when curiosity leads us beyond familiar boundaries. Cultural imagination shapes collective beliefs and behaviors. Just as individuals imagine, so do cultures. Shared myths, values, national identities, and visions of the future are forms of collective imagination. A nation imagines itself as a community with common history and destiny. And this shared imagination binds individuals into a cohesive whole. Cultural imagination shapes everything from fashion and architecture to laws and social norms. In some eras, societies imagine progress as inevitable. In others, they imagine decline. These collective visions influence behavior, policy, and priorities. They can inspire great achievements or justify terrible harms. Propaganda and advertising are efforts to shape collective imagination to make certain ideas seem natural, desirable, or necessary. Understanding cultural imagination helps us see that much of what feels fixed and given is actually imagined and constructed. Social realities, though powerful, are not immutable. They rest on shared beliefs and narratives, which means they can be reimagined and changed. Social movements begin when people imagine alternatives and convince others to share that vision. Advertising manipulates imagination to create desire. Advertising is applied imagination carefully crafted to make products seem essential, desirable, and identity-defining. Advertisers do not just present information. They tell stories, evoke emotions, and invite consumers to imagine themselves transformed by purchase. A car commercial does not merely show a vehicle. It shows freedom, adventure, status. A perfume ad does not describe scent. It conjures romance, elegance, allure. These are imaginative appeals, asking viewers to project themselves into aspirational scenarios where the product plays a key role. The effectiveness of advertising demonstrates imagination's susceptibility to external influence. When we consume media, we absorb not just facts but imaginative frameworks, ways of seeing and valuing. Critical awareness of this process helps us navigate a media-saturated world without being passively shaped by it. We can choose which imaginative invitations to accept and which to decline, reclaiming agency over our own imaginative lives. Propaganda exploits imagination to shape public opinion. While advertising sells products, propaganda sells ideas, political agendas, and worldviews. It uses the same imaginative techniques, but with higher stakes. Propagandists craft narratives that simplify complex realities, casting certain groups as heroes and others as villains. They use symbols, slogans, and emotionally charged imagery to bypass rational thought and speak directly to imagination. When successful, propaganda reshapes how people see the world, making certain actions seem justified, even necessary. History is filled with examples, from wartime posters dehumanizing enemies to political campaigns stoking fear and division. Understanding propaganda as imaginative manipulation is essential for resisting it. When we recognize that narratives are being constructed to influence us, we can question them, seek alternative perspectives, and reclaim critical thought. Imagination, so central to creativity and empathy, can also be weaponized. Protecting our imaginative autonomy requires vigilance, media literacy, and the courage to imagine beyond the stories others want us to believe. The internet has transformed how imagination is shared and consumed. For most of history, imaginative works, stories, images, music was scarce and localized. Today, the internet makes imagination infinitely accessible. Anyone can publish a story, share art, or broadcast ideas to a global audience. This democratization has unleashed unprecedented creativity, giving voice to perspectives that traditional gatekeepers might have excluded. But it has also created challenges. The sheer volume of content can be overwhelming. Algorithms shape what we see, often prioritizing engagement over quality, sensationalism over substance. Social media encourages performative imagination where creativity is shaped by the desire for likes and shares. The internet is a double-edged. It expands imagination's reach, but also commodifies and accelerates it, sometimes at the cost of depth and reflection. Navigating this landscape requires intentionality. We can use the internet to nourish imagination, seeking out diverse voices, learning new things, and connecting with communities. Or we can let it fragment our attention and homogenize our thinking. The choice, as always, rests with how we engage our own imaginative faculties. Video games are interactive, imaginative experiences. Video games represent a unique form of imagination, one that is interactive and participatory. Unlike books or films, where imagination fills in details around a fixed narrative, games let players make choices that shape outcomes. A player might decide how a story unfolds, which paths to explore, how to solve problems. This interactivity deepens immersion. The player is not just imagining a character, but inhabiting one, making decisions and experiencing consequences. Games also create persistent imaginative worlds. Players return again and again, building relationships with characters, mastering skills, and exploring landscapes that feel familiar and lived in. Critics sometimes dismiss games as trivial, but they engage imagination in sophisticated ways, blending narrative, strategy, aesthetics, and social interaction. For many people, especially younger generations, games are a primary site of imaginative engagement, a space where creativity, collaboration, and challenge converge. Understanding games as imaginative practice helps us appreciate their cultural significance and their potential as tools for learning, storytelling, and connection. Role-playing games blend imagination with social interaction. Tabletop role-playing in games like Dungeons & Dragons are exercises in collaborative imagination. Players create characters and a game master presents scenarios, but the story unfolds through collective improvisation. There are rules and dice, structure, and chance, but within that framework, imagination runs free. Players describe their actions, speak in character, and respond to unexpected twists. It is storytelling as a group activity where no one person controls the narrative. Instead, it emerges from the interplay of individual imaginations. These games build skills, creative thinking, problem-solving, empathy, and communication. They also create community, bringing people together around shared imaginative worlds. In recent years, actual play shows where groups record their game sessions have become popular, demonstrating that watching others imagine can be as engaging as imagining yourself. Role-playing in games remind us that imagination is not only a solitary act, but a social one, richer and more surprising when shared. Cosplay and fandom celebrate imaginative identification with fictional worlds. Fandom is a phenomenon of deep imaginative investment in fictional worlds. Fans do not passively consume stories. They engage actively writing fanfiction, creating art, dressing as characters, attending conventions. Cosplay, the practice of creating and wearing costumes based on fictional characters, is imagination made visible and worn. It is an act of identification, creativity, and community. Fans reimagine characters, explore alternate storylines, and build friendships around shared loves. This participatory culture transforms imagination from private experience to public expression. It also challenges traditional boundaries between creator and audience. Fans become creators in their own right, expanding and reinterpreting source material. While some dismiss fandom as obsessive or childish, it represents a vibrant form of cultural engagement, one where imagination is celebrated, shared, and continually renewed. Fandom shows that imaginative worlds do not belong only to their original creators. They belong to everyone who enters them, who finds meaning and joy there, and who carries them forward. Conspiracy theories are imagination untethered from evidence. Not all imagination is beneficial. Conspiracy theories demonstrate what happens when imaginative pattern-seeking runs unchecked by evidence and critical thinking. Humans naturally seek explanations for events, especially troubling or confusing ones. When official explanations feel inadequate, imagination fills the gap, constructing alternative narratives that often involve hidden agendas, secret groups, and elaborate deceptions. These narratives can be compelling precisely because they are imaginative, offering coherence and agency in a chaotic world. They provide villains to blame and mysteries to solve. But they also distort reality, leading people to reject evidence, distrust institutions, and sometimes act on false beliefs in harmful ways. Conspiracy thinking shows imagination's dark potential. Its capacity to construct convincing fictions that feel more real than reality itself. Combating conspiracy theories requires not dismissing imagination but redirecting it. Encouraging curiosity coupled with skepticism, pattern-seeking balanced by evidence, and the humility to accept that some questions do not have simple satisfying answers. Imagination can be trained and strengthened like a skill. While everyone has imagination, not everyone uses it equally or skillfully. Like a muscle, imagination strengthens with exercise. Engaging in creative activities, reading fiction, learning new things, and allowing time for daydreaming all nurture imaginative capacity. Deliberate practice can enhance specific imaginative skills. Writers practice generating plot ideas. Artists practice visualizing forms and colors. Engineers practice imagining how systems will function. Athletes practice visualizing successful performances. Each domain of imagination can be developed through focused effort and repetition. Schools and workplaces that value creativity provide opportunities and encouragement for imaginative thinking. Those that emphasize rote learning and rigid procedures may inadvertently stifle it. Recognizing imagination as a skill, not just an innate trait, is empowering. It means anyone can become more imaginative with intention and practice. It also means imagination deserves time and resources. Protected space in busy lives and curricula. Honored as essential rather than dismissed as optional constraints can paradoxically enhance imagination. It might seem that imagination flourishes best without limits in total freedom. But creative practitioners often find the opposite. Constraints, rules, and limitations can spark imagination by providing structure and challenge. A poet writing in strict meter must find creative solutions to fit meaning within form. An architect designing with limited materials must innovate. A filmmaker on a tight budget must rely on ingenuity rather than spectacle. Constraints force imagination to work harder to find novel paths around obstacles. They prevent reliance on easy, familiar solutions and push toward originality. This is why creative exercises often impose arbitrary rules. Write a story without using the letter E. Design something using only 3 colors. These constraints are not punishments but catalysts provoking imagination to stretch and discover. Total freedom can be paralyzing, offering too many options and no clear direction. A well-chosen constraint provides focus, turning imagination into a problem-solving adventure rather than an aimless wandering. Solitude often deepens imaginative thought. While imagination can be collaborative, it also thrives in solitude. Time alone free from social demands and external stimulation allows the mind to wander deeply. Writers, artists, and thinkers throughout history have sought solitude to access their imaginative depths in quiet isolation without interruption. Thoughts can develop fully following unexpected paths. Ideas that might be dismissed in conversation can be explored without judgment. Solitude is not loneliness. It is chosen time with oneself, a gift of space for inner life to flourish. Modern life often fills every moment with noise and activity, leaving little room for the kind of sustained, undirected thought that solitude enables. Yet those who protect time for solitude often report greater creativity, clarity, and insight. Imagination needs silence and space to breathe, to meander, to discover what it could not find in the bustle and chatter of constant engagement. To be alone with your thoughts is to give imagination its most natural habitat, a quiet mind open to wherever it might roam. Nature inspires imagination in ways urban environments do not. There is something about natural settings, forests, mountains, oceans that invites imaginative thought. Perhaps it is the beauty, the complexity, or the sense of timelessness. Perhaps it is the way nature operates by rhythms different from human urgency. Studies have shown that spending time in nature enhances creativity and reduces mental fatigue. The Japanese practice of forest bathing encourages mindful presence in wooded areas, and participants often report feeling refreshed and imaginatively renewed. Natural environments provide sensory richness without the overstimulation of cities. They offer space for the mind to expand, to match its thoughts to wide horizons and deep silences. Many writers and artists seek nature when they feel creatively blocked, finding that the change of environment unlocks imagination. Nature reminds us that we are part of a larger world, and this perspective can shift thinking, opening new imaginative pathways. It is no accident that so many myths, poems, and stories are set in natural landscapes. Nature and imagination have always been companions. Walking stimulates imaginative and creative thinking. Philosophers, writers, and thinkers have long known that walking aids thought. Aristotle taught while walking. Wordsworth composed poems on long walks. Nature wrote that all truly great thoughts are conceived while walking. There is something about the rhythm of walking, the steady movement and engagement of the body that frees the mind. Research supports this intuition. Studies have found that walking, especially in natural settings, boosts creative thinking and problem solving. The act of moving seems to shake loose mental blockages, allowing ideas to flow more freely. Walking provides gentle, repetitive sensory input that occupies the conscious mind just enough to let the unconscious work. It also changes perspective, literally offering new views and metaphorically opening mental space. When stuck on a problem or seeking inspiration, a walk can be more productive than staring at a screen. Imagination, it seems, likes to move, to roam, to wander, not just mentally, but physically through the world. Sleep enhances creativity through unconscious processing. We often wake with solutions to problems we could not solve the night before. There is truth to the advice. Sleep on it. During sleep, the brain continues processing information, making connections, and consolidating memories. Sleep in particular seems to facilitate creative thinking. In this state, the brain forms associations between disparate concepts, sometimes producing insights that elude waking thought. Dreams, as discussed earlier, are a window into this process. But even without remembering dreams, sleep supports imagination. It allows the mind to rest from effortful focus and engage in more diffuse associative thinking. Artists and scientists have reported breakthroughs arriving in dreams or upon waking. The unconscious mind, freed from the constraints of logic and conscious control, explores possibilities the waking mind might dismiss. Sleep is not time lost to productivity. It is essential for the kind of deep integrative thinking that fuels imagination and creativity. Rest and creation are not opposites but partners. Silence allows imagination to speak more clearly. In a noisy world, silence has become rare. Yet, silence is where imagination often finds its voice. Without the constant input of music, conversation, media, or notifications, the mind turns inward. Thoughts that were drowned out by external noise begin to surface. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first, exposing us to our own restlessness and unprocessed emotions. But if we sit with it, silence becomes a canvas, an open space where imagination can paint freely. Contemplative traditions across cultures have recognized this, using silence as a practice for deepening awareness and accessing inner wisdom. Creative people often seek silence when beginning new work, needing to hear the quiet stirrings of ideas before articulating them. Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness waiting to be discovered. A reservoir of potential thought and feeling accessible only when we stop filling every moment with sound. To embrace silence is to give imagination permission to emerge in its own time at its own pace, unrushed and unforced. Repetitive tasks can free the mind to wander imaginatively. Sometimes imagination flourishes not in focused effort but in the background of routine tasks. Washing dishes, folding laundry, gardening, activities that require minimal conscious attention allow the mind to drift. This is why people often report having their best ideas in the shower or while driving familiar routes. The hands are busy. The conscious mind lightly engaged and imagination is free to roam. Repetitive tasks create a kind of meditative state, a gentle rhythm that soothes the restless surface of thought and allows deeper currents to emerge. This is different from boredom, which feels frustrating, and from focused work, which demands concentration. It is a middle state, a liminal space where imagination can play without pressure or direction. Recognizing the value of such tasks helps us appreciate them rather than resent them. They are not merely chores but opportunities. Moments when the mind can wander, explore, and sometimes surprise us with insights we did not know we were seeking. Collaboration blends individual imaginations into collective creation. While solitude nourishes imagination, collaboration can amplify it. When people come together with different perspectives, skills, and ideas, their combined imaginations can produce something none could have created alone. This is the magic of brainstorming, of writer rooms, of jazz ensembles improvising together. Each person contributes, building on others' ideas, sparking new directions. Collaboration requires openness, the willingness to let go of individual ownership and trust the collective process. It also requires listening, truly hearing what others imagine and finding ways to integrate it. The result can be richer and more surprising than solo work. Collaborative imagination also teaches humility. It shows us that our perspective is not the only one, that others see possibilities we miss. In teams, communities, and partnerships, imagination becomes a shared resource, multiplied rather than divided. The best collaborations honor both individual voices and collective vision, creating space for everyone to contribute while shaping something greater than the sum of its parts. Imagination bridges the gap between cultures and languages. Language and culture shape imagination, but imagination also transcends them. Stories translate across languages, finding new audiences in different tongues. Art created in one culture resonates in another despite differences in context and reference. This is because imagination taps into universal human experiences: love, loss, hope, fear, curiosity. While the specific forms and symbols vary, the underlying emotions and themes are shared. Imagination allows us to cross cultural boundaries to understand and appreciate perspectives different from our own. When we read a novel from another country or view art from another era, we are engaging our imagination to bridge distance and difference. This cross-cultural imaginative exchange enriches everyone involved, expanding horizons and fostering empathy. It also challenges the notion that imagination is entirely private or subjective. While each person's imaginative experience is unique, we share enough common ground that imagination can become a language of its own, one that connects across all the human divisions we might otherwise find insurmountable. Children lose some imaginative freedom as they internalize social norms. As children grow, they learn what is acceptable and what is not. They absorb social norms, cultural values, and expectations about how to behave and think. This socialization is necessary for functioning in society, but it can also constrain imagination. A young child might draw a purple sun or invent a nonsensical word without hesitation. An older child, aware that sums are yellow and words must make sense, might self-censor, editing imagination to fit learned rules. This is not entirely negative. Shared conventions allow communication and cooperation, but it can also diminish the wild, unconstrained creativity of early childhood. Adults often look back nostalgically at childhood imagination, remembering a time before self-consciousness and judgment narrowed possibilities. Some never fully recover that freedom, while others, through art, play, or deliberate practice, reclaim it. Recognizing this dynamic helps us understand that imagination is shaped by both internal capacity and external influence. To nurture imagination, especially in children, requires creating environments where exploration is valued as much as correctness, and where creativity is celebrated even when it breaks rules. Fear of judgment can stifle imaginative expression. One of imagination's greatest enemies is the fear of being judged. When people worry about what others will think, they hold back, editing ideas before they are even fully formed. This fear can prevent creative risks, keeping imagination within safe conventional bounds. Artists speak of the inner critic, a voice that whispers, "You're not good enough," or "This is ridiculous." That voice often internalizes past criticisms or societal standards. Overcoming it requires courage and self-compassion. Many creative practices emphasize producing without judgment, writing rough drafts, sketching freely, brainstorming without filtering to bypass the critic and access unguarded imagination. When we create spaces, whether for ourselves or others, that are free from harsh judgment, imagination flourishes. This does not mean avoiding all feedback or critique, which can be valuable, but rather separating the generative phase, where imagination flows freely, from the evaluative phase, where refinement happens. Trusting that initial imaginative impulses have value, even when rough, allows them to emerge and grow. Some of the greatest inventions began as imaginative thought experiments. Many technological advances originated not in labs, but in minds imagining possibilities. Leonardo da Vinci sketched flying machines centuries before flight was possible. Jules Verne imagined submarines and space travel before either existed. These were not predictions but imaginative explorations asking what if in ways that inspired later innovators. Thought experiments in physics like Einstein imagining riding a light beam or Schrödinger pondering a cat in a box pushed scientific understanding forward by exploring implications of theories through imagination. Imagination precedes invention. Before something can be built, it must be conceived. Engineers imagine structures.
Programmers imagine algorithms. Designers imagine interfaces.
Each creation begins as a mental image, a vision of something that does not yet exist. The Wright brothers imagined controlled flight and built a machine to achieve it. Steve Jobs imagined a personal computer in every home and worked to realize that vision. Imagination transforms the impossible into the possible by first making it conceivable. Imagination helps us rehearse difficult conversations and scenarios. Before a challenging conversation, many people mentally rehearse. They imagine what they will say, how the other person might respond, and how they will reply in turn. This imaginative rehearsal can reduce anxiety and improve outcomes. By anticipating possibilities, we prepare ourselves emotionally and cognitively. Feeling less caught off guard, imagination allows us to try different approaches in our minds, selecting the one that feels best. This is not about scripting every word, which can backfire if reality diverges from the imagined scenario, but about building confidence and clarity. Therapists sometimes use role-playing, a form of imaginative rehearsal, to help clients practice assertiveness or boundary setting. Imagination in this context is a practical tool for navigating social complexity. It reminds us that thoughts are not just abstract or creative, but deeply functional, helping us move through the world with greater skill and ease by imagining before acting. We smooth the path from intention to execution. Imagination allows us to envision and work toward a better world. Social change begins with imagination. Before activists march, reformers write laws or communities organize. Someone must imagine that things could be different. The civil rights movement imagined equality. Environmental movements imagined sustainability. Democratic revolutions imagine self-governance. These visions are not detailed blueprints, but imaginative horizons, ideals that inspire and guide action. Without the capacity to imagine alternatives to the status quo, oppression and injustice would remain unchallenged. Imagination disrupts complacency, asking why not and what if. It is a radical force threatening to establish powers precisely because it shows that current arrangements are not inevitable. Visionaries from Martin Luther King Jr. to Malala Yousafzai have used imagination to articulate futures worth striving for. Futures where dignity, justice, and opportunity are shared. They invite others to imagine alongside them, creating collective vision that can mobilize masses. Imagination, far from being escapist, is often deeply political, a tool for envisioning and building the world we want to inhabit. Pessimistic imagination can trap us in cycles of despair. Just as hopeful imagination can inspire, pessimistic imagination can paralyze. When we repeatedly imagine failure, rejection, or catastrophe, those visions shape expectations and behavior. A student imagining they will fail a test may become so anxious they cannot study effectively, fulfilling their own prophecy. A person imagining social rejection may avoid interactions, ensuring loneliness. This is not to blame individuals for negative thinking, but to recognize imagination's power to influence outcomes. Pessimism can become a self-reinforcing loop where imagination feeds fear. Fear shapes behavior and behavior confirms the imagined outcome. Breaking the cycle requires redirecting imagination intentionally toward more balanced or hopeful scenarios. This is not naive optimism, but realistic imagination, considering a range of possibilities rather than fixating on the worst. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people identify and challenge pessimistic imaginings, replacing them with more accurate and constructive ones. Imagination is neutral, a tool that can build or destroy. Learning to wield it wisely means cultivating awareness of the stories we tell ourselves and choosing visions that support well-being and growth. Imaginative empathy allows us to understand historical suffering. History is not just dates and events. It is the lived experience of countless individuals, most of whom left no written record. Imagination helps us bridge that gap. When we read about slavery, war, or famine, imaginative empathy allows us to grasp, however imperfectly, what those experiences might have felt like. This is not the same as truly knowing, which is impossible across such distances, but it is a form of moral engagement. By imagining the suffering of others, we cultivate compassion and a commitment to preventing such harms in the future. Holocaust education, for example, often uses testimonies and personal stories to engage students' imagination, making abstract numbers feel human. The same applies to any historical injustice. Imagination transforms statistics into people, distant events into felt realities. This empathic imagination is essential for learning from history and honoring those who endured what we cannot fully comprehend. It reminds us that behind every historical fact are individual lives, hopes and losses worthy of remembrance and respect. Imagination helps us cope with uncertainty about the future. The future is unknowable, and this uncertainty can be deeply unsettling. Imagination helps us cope by constructing multiple possible futures, preparing ourselves psychologically for a range of outcomes. We imagine best-case scenarios which provide hope. We imagine worst-case scenarios which allow us to prepare. We imagine likely scenarios which guide planning. This imaginative flexibility is a form of resilience. By holding multiple futures lightly, we avoid becoming overly attached to any single outcome. When reality unfolds, it rarely matches our imaginings exactly. But the act of imagining has prepared us to adapt. Imagination also offers comfort in uncertainty. When we do not know what will happen, we can at least imagine possibilities, exerting a kind of mental control over what feels chaotic. This is why people tell themselves stories about the future, weaving narratives that give shape and meaning to the unknown. Imagination does not eliminate uncertainty, but it makes it more bearable, transforming the void of not knowing into a landscape of possibilities. The imagination of children is crucial for cognitive development. Childhood imagination is not a trivial pastime, but a critical component of development. Through imaginative play, children develop executive functions like planning, problem-solving, and self-regulation. When a child builds an imaginary spaceship from blocks, they are practicing spatial reasoning and engineering concepts. When they pretend to be a doctor, they are exploring social roles and empathy. Imagination allows children to experiment with ideas and identities in low-stakes environments, learning about the world and themselves. Research shows that children who engage in rich imaginative play tend to perform better academically and socially. They develop stronger language skills, better emotional regulation, and greater creativity. Imagination is how children make sense of experiences, processing emotions and events through symbolic play. It is also how they learn to think flexibly, considering multiple perspectives and solutions. Far from being a distraction from real learning, imagination is foundational to it, a natural and essential mode of childhood cognition that deserves protection and encouragement. Elderly adults often revisit memories through imagination. As people age, they spend more time reflecting on the past. Memory and imagination blend as older adults revisit events, sometimes reimagining them with new perspective. This life review process can be meaningful, helping individuals integrate experiences, find coherence in their life story, and come to terms with regrets or losses. Imagination allows the elderly to explore what might have been, not with bitterness, but with curiosity and acceptance. It also enables them to share stories with younger generations, passing down wisdom and history. Imaginative reminiscence can be therapeutic, offering comfort and connection. In dementia care, reminiscence therapy uses imagination to help patients access memories. Even when those memories are fragmented or unclear, the imaginative reconstruction of the past can be soothing, providing a sense of identity and continuity for all of us. As we age, imagination will likely play a role in how we understand our lives, weaving disparate moments into narratives that give them meaning and shape. Imagination thrives when basic needs are met. Maslow's hierarchy of needs suggests that higher-order pursuits like creativity emerge only when basic needs, safety, food, shelter are satisfied. While this model has limitations, it holds a truth. It is difficult to imagine freely when survival is at stake. When hunger nor danger looms, imagination requires a degree of safety and stability. Mental space to think beyond the immediate. This is why poverty, violence, and instability often constrain imagination. Not because people lack capacity, but because circumstances demand constant vigilance and immediate problem-solving. Societies that ensure basic needs for all create conditions where imagination can flourish across the population. Education, healthcare, and economic security are not just practical goods, but foundations for imaginative life. Conversely, when people are constantly stressed or struggling, their imaginative horizons narrow. Recognizing this helps us understand imagination not as an individual trait alone, but as something shaped by social conditions. To honor imagination is to create societies where everyone has the security and opportunity to dream, explore, and create. Trauma can sometimes narrow imagination to survival mode. Traumatic experiences can profoundly affect imagination. When the mind is overwhelmed by threat, it narrows its focus to survival, a state where imagination becomes fixated on danger. People with post-traumatic stress may struggle to imagine positive futures, their minds repeatedly returning to traumatic memories or anticipating further harm. This is not a failure of imagination but a protective response. The mind trying to prevent future trauma by remaining hypervigilant. Healing from trauma often involves gently expanding imaginative capacity again. helping the person envision safety, possibility, and hope. Therapies like EMDR and narrative therapy use imagination to reprocess traumatic memories, creating new contexts and meanings. Imagination, which trauma constricted, gradually reopens, allowing the person to imagine beyond survival. This process is delicate and gradual, requiring patience and support. It shows that imagination is not invulnerable but resilient. Even when profoundly disrupted, it can be nurtured back to health, reclaiming its role as a source of creativity, connection, and joy. Philosophy uses imagination to explore abstract concepts. Philosophy is often seen as purely rational, but it relies heavily on imagination. Thought experiments like the trolley problem or the veil of ignorance are imaginative scenarios designed to test intuitions and clarify principles. Philosophers imagine ideal societies, perfect knowledge, or beings with different natures to explore what those conditions might reveal. Descartes imagined an evil demon deceiving him about reality to examine the limits of certainty. Rawls imagined people choosing principles of justice without knowing their own social position to derive fair rules. These imaginative exercises are not idle speculation but rigorous methods for probing ethical, metaphysical, and epistemological questions. Imagination allows philosophers to venture beyond the immediately observable to consider possibilities, counterfactuals, and abstractions. It is the tool that lets them ask what if and follow the logic wherever it leads, uncovering insights that pure analysis might miss. Philosophy and imagination are not opposites but partners in the pursuit of understanding. Mathematics involves deep imaginative abstraction. Mathematics may seem like the epitome of logic, devoid of imagination. But mathematicians often describe their work as deeply imaginative. They envision abstract spaces, manipulate symbols representing invisible quantities, and construct proofs that follow from pure reason. To work with higher dimensions beyond our three-dimensional experience requires imagination. To conceive of infinity or irrational numbers or complex topologies requires stepping beyond concrete reality into realms that exist only conceptually. Mathematicians speak of elegance and beauty in proofs, aesthetic judgments that reflect imaginative engagement. They explore mathematical landscapes, discovering structures and relationships that were always there in some sense, but required imaginative vision to perceive. Great mathematical breakthroughs often come from imaginative leaps, seeing connections others missed or reconceptualizing problems in novel ways. Mathematics, far from being mechanical, is a profoundly creative discipline where imagination and rigor work together to uncover truths about abstract structures. Computer programming is an exercise in imaginative problem solving. Programmers imagine how data should flow, how users will interact with interfaces, and how systems will handle countless scenarios. They construct mental models of processes that will unfold entirely in machine logic. This requires both precision and creativity. A programmer must imagine edge cases, anticipate failures, and devise elegant solutions to complex problems. Coding is not just translating instructions into syntax. It is architecting systems that do not yet exist, envisioning how components will interact and debugging by imagining what might have gone wrong. The best programmers combine technical skill with imaginative insight, seeing possibilities others overlook and designing solutions that are both functional and innovative. Programming languages themselves are imaginative constructs, tools invented to allow humans to communicate intentions to machines. Every app, every website, every piece of software begins as an imagined possibility. A vision of what technology could do, then realized through logic, language, and imagination working in concert. Space exploration is fueled by imagination of distant worlds. Humanity's ventures into space rest on imagination. Before rockets flew, people imagined traveling beyond Earth. Science fiction writers envisioned space stations, lunar colonies, and interstellar journeys long before they were technically feasible. These imaginative visions inspired engineers and scientists, giving them goals to strive toward. Even today, as we send robots to Mars or plan missions to distant moons, imagination drives exploration. We imagine what alien landscapes might look like, whether life might exist elsewhere, and how humanity might one day spread among the stars. Space exploration is not merely scientific. It is profoundly imaginative, a collective dream of reaching beyond our planetary home. Each mission extends the reach of human imagination into the cosmos, transforming what was once pure fantasy into achieved reality. And yet the imagination continues ahead, always envisioning further, deeper, more ambitious journeys. Space exploration shows that imagination can reshape what is possible, turning dreams into destinations. Imagination lets us consider moral dilemmas from multiple perspectives. Ethical reasoning often requires imagining ourselves in different roles. When considering whether an action is right, we might imagine being the person affected by it, asking how we would feel in their position. This imaginative perspective taking is central to moral philosophy. The golden rule, treat others as you would wish to be treated, is fundamentally imaginative. It asks us to imagine our desires, needs, and feelings as theirs. More complex ethical frameworks like utilitarianism or deontology also rely on imagination to consider consequences, duties, and principles. Imagination allows us to hold competing values in mind, to weigh them against each other, and to navigate the gray areas where clear answers are elusive. It is not a substitute for reason, but a complement, enriching moral thinking with empathy and perspective. By imagining broadly and deeply, we make better ethical choices grounded not just in abstract rules, but in felt understanding of how actions ripple through lives and communities. The human brain has evolved to support rich imaginative capacity. Why did imagination evolve? From a survival perspective, it offers clear advantages. Imagining future scenarios allows planning and foresight, improving chances of survival and reproduction. Imagining others' mental states enables cooperation and social coordination. Imagining solutions to problems fosters innovation and adaptation. Our brains, particularly the prefrontal cortex and default mode network, have evolved to support these functions. Humans possess imagination in a degree unmatched by other species. Though some animals show rudimentary forms, this capacity has enabled extraordinary achievements from agriculture to art, from language to science. Imagination is not an evolutionary accident, but a feature, a tool honed over millennia because it conferred advantages. It allowed early humans to anticipate seasons, plan hunts, navigate complex social hierarchies, and pass knowledge through generations. Today, imagination continues to serve those functions while also enabling pursuits that transcend immediate survival, beauty, meaning, and exploration for their own sake. Imagination is woven into what makes us human, a gift of evolution that we use to transcend evolutionary constraints. Imagination can be a refuge during times of hardship when external circumstances are bleak. Imagination offers an inner sanctuary. Prisoners, refugees, and those facing prolonged suffering often speak of retreating into imagination to preserve hope and sanity. They imagine reunions with loved ones, envision better futures, or lose themselves in memories of happier times. This is not denial, but resilience. Imagination provides psychological relief, a reminder that the present moment is not all there is. It preserves identity and agency when both are threatened. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, emphasized that even in extreme suffering, people retain the freedom to choose their inner response. Imagination is part of that freedom. It allows us to hold visions of meaning, purpose, and possibility even when surrounded by despair. This capacity is profoundly human and profoundly moving. It shows that imagination is not merely a luxury of comfortable lives but a lifeline, a source of strength that can sustain us through the darkest times. Imagination is essential for language acquisition and use. Language itself is imaginative. Words are symbols, sounds, or marks that represent concepts. To use language, we must imagine what words refer to. Linking arbitrary symbols to meanings. Children learning language engage their imagination constantly, hearing a word and forming a mental image or concept. They imagine the perspectives of others, inferring what speakers intend to communicate. Language also allows imagination to extend beyond immediate experience. Through words we can describe things not present, talk about the past and future, and convey abstract ideas. We can tell stories, share dreams, and build shared understandings. Without imagination, language would be impossible. And without language, much of human imagination would remain locked inside individual minds, unable to be shared or built upon collectively. The two capacities co-evolved, each enabling and enhancing the other, creating the uniquely human ability to communicate complex, abstract, and imaginative thought. Metaphor and analogy are imaginative tools for understanding. When we encounter something unfamiliar, we often understand it by comparing it to something familiar. This is analogy, an imaginative bridge between known and unknown. The brain is like a computer. Time is like a river. These comparisons are not literal but imaginative, highlighting certain features while ignoring others. Analogies and metaphors are fundamental to thought and communication, allowing us to grasp abstract or complex ideas through imaginative association. Scientists use analogies to explain phenomena, comparing electrons orbiting a nucleus to planets orbiting a sun. Teachers use metaphors to make concepts accessible, describing the immune system as an army defending the body. While analogies can mislead if taken too far, they are essential for learning and understanding. They show how imagination structures cognition, providing frameworks and patterns that help us make sense of an endlessly complex world. Every metaphor is an act of imagination, linking disparate domains to create meaning and insight. Imagination enables us to create and appreciate humor. Humor relies on imagination, on seeing unexpected connections and juxtapositions. A joke sets up a scenario and then subverts expectations, and the surprise triggers laughter. To find something funny, we must imagine the setup, anticipate a certain outcome, and then delight in the twist. Imagination allows us to appreciate absurdity, irony, and wordplay. It lets us visualize ridiculous scenes or consider impossible situations. Comedy writers and performers use imagination to craft scenarios that are surprising, exaggerated, and revealing. Satire uses imagination to critique society by exaggerating its flaws. Parody reimagines familiar forms in humorous ways. Humor, like art, engages our imaginative faculties, inviting us to see the world slant, to question assumptions, and to find joy in the unexpected. Laughter is a social glue bonding people through shared imaginative delight. To laugh together is to imagine together, recognizing the absurdities and ironies of existence in ways that lighten the weight of being human. Fear can be fueled by imagination of unlikely threats. While imagination often serves us well, it can also amplify fears disproportionate to actual risk. We imagine plane crashes, shark attacks, or rare diseases. Even though statistically they are unlikely, the vividness of these imagined scenarios makes them feel more probable than they are. This is partly because our brains evolved in environments where immediate vivid threats, predators, injuries were real dangers. Imagination helped us stay alert. But in modern life, this tendency can misfire, creating anxiety about remote possibilities while underestimating real but less dramatic risks like poor diet or lack of exercise. Media amplifies this by flooding us with images of rare catastrophes, feeding imagination with material for fear. Understanding this dynamic helps us calibrate our responses, recognizing when imagination is exaggerating danger and consciously redirecting attention to more realistic assessments. Imagination is powerful, and its power can be misapplied. Learning to use it wisely means not suppressing it but guiding it toward balanced, informed perspectives. Hope is an imaginative stance toward the future. Hope is not wishful thinking but a disciplined imagination. It involves envisioning positive futures while acknowledging present difficulties. Hope imagines that things can improve, that suffering is not permanent, that effort can make a difference. This imaginative orientation sustains motivation and resilience. Research shows that hopeful people tend to set goals, persevere through challenges, and experience better mental and physical health. Hope is not passive. It is active, imagining possibilities and then working toward them. It is also humble, recognizing that outcomes are not guaranteed, but believing effort is worthwhile in dark times. Hope can feel naive. Yet, it is often what carries people through. Activists, reformers, and healers all practice hope, imagining better worlds and dedicating themselves to making those visions real. Hope is imagination in service of possibility, a refusal to be defined by present limitations. It is in many ways imagination's most profound gift, the capacity to see beyond what is and believe in what could be. Imagination helps us appreciate beauty and aesthetics. Beauty is not just perceived, it is imagined. When we look at a painting, listen to music, or walk through a garden, our imagination engages, filling in meanings, associations, and emotions. A landscape painting does not just show us trees and sky. It invites us to imagine being in that place. Feeling the light, hearing the wind, a piece of music does not just produce sound. It evokes memories, moods, and stories we imagine as we listen. Aesthetics, the study of beauty and art, recognizes that appreciation involves imaginative participation. We bring ourselves to the experience, our histories, our feelings, our creative faculties. This is why beauty is subjective yet meaningful. Why the same piece of art can move one person to tears and leave another unmoved. Imagination shapes aesthetic experience, transforming sensory input into something richer, something personal and profound. To appreciate beauty is to engage imagination. To see not just what is present but what it suggests, evokes, and means to us. Imagination can help us forgive by envisioning others' perspectives. Forgiveness is difficult, especially when harm is deep. But imagination can aid the process by imagining the circumstances, pressures, and limitations of the person who caused harm. We can sometimes soften anger and cultivate compassion. This does not excuse wrongdoing, but it humanizes the wrongdoer, allowing us to see them as flawed rather than monstrous. Imagination helps us consider that people often act from pain, fear, or ignorance rather than malice. It allows us to envision their inner lives, to imagine what might have led them to behave as they did. This empathic imagination can open pathways to forgiveness, not as condoning harm, but as releasing the grip of resentment. Forgiveness is ultimately for the forgiver, a way to move forward unburdened by bitterness. Imagination supports this by broadening perspective, helping us see beyond our own hurt to the larger, more complex human story of which we are all part. Imagination creates the worlds of virtual reality and simulations. Virtual reality takes imagination out of the mind and into shared sensory experience. VR creates environments that feel real, engaging sight, sound, and sometimes touch. Users can walk through ancient cities, explore alien planets, or practice skills in simulated settings. This technology extends imagination beyond the private mental realm into interactive immersive spaces. It has applications in education, therapy, entertainment, and training, allowing people to experience scenarios that would otherwise be impossible or dangerous. VR is imagination made external and collective, a tool for creating experiences that multiple people can share simultaneously. It also raises philosophical questions about reality and experience. If a simulated environment feels real, in what sense is it not real? As technology advances, the line between imagined and actual experience may blur further, prompting us to reconsider the nature of imagination, reality, and the relationship between them. Creativity is imagination applied to producing something new. Creativity and imagination are closely related but not identical. Imagination is the capacity to form mental images and concepts. Creativity is the application of that capacity to generate novel, valuable outcomes. An artist imagines a scene and then paints it, transforming imagination into creation. A scientist imagines a hypothesis and then tests it, turning imaginative speculation into knowledge. Creativity requires imagination, but also skill, discipline, and often collaboration. It involves not just having ideas, but refining, developing, and realizing them. Creative work bridges inner and outer worlds, making the invisible visible, the imagined tangible. Societies that value creativity provide opportunities and resources for people to turn imaginative visions into reality. They recognize that creativity drives progress, enriches culture, and expresses the fullness of human potential. To support creativity is to honor imagination, giving it the tools and space to transform dreams into works that others can experience and appreciate. Imagination enables us to find patterns and meaning in randomness. Humans are pattern seekers. We see constellations in random stars, hear melodies in noise, find meaning in coincidences. This tendency reflects imagination's role in making sense of the world. By imagining connections and patterns, we impose order on chaos, transforming overwhelming complexity into comprehensible stories. Sometimes this serves us well, helping us recognize genuine patterns and predict outcomes. Other times it leads us astray, as when we see conspiracies in randomness or assign meaning to mere chance. The line between insight and illusion can be thin, and imagination walks it constantly. Understanding this helps us appreciate imagination's power while remaining cautious about its conclusions. We can use imagination to generate hypotheses but test them against evidence. We can enjoy the stories imagination tells while holding them lightly, open to revision when reality proves different. Imagination gives us narrative, but wisdom knows that narrative is not the same as truth. The imaginative capacity of humanity has grown with cultural evolution. While human biology has changed little in recent millennia, our imaginative and creative output has exploded. This is because imagination builds on itself. Each generation inherits the ideas, stories, tools, and knowledge of previous ones, using them as foundations for new imaginings. Writing allowed ideas to be preserved and shared across time and space, exponentially expanding imaginative possibilities. Printing and later digital technology accelerated this process. Today, anyone with internet access can draw on humanity's collective imagination, learning from countless sources and contributing their own visions. This cumulative cultural evolution means that imagination is not just an individual trait, but a collective, ever-growing resource. Each person's imaginative work adds to the pool, enriching future generations. This is why protecting and sharing creative and intellectual work matters. Imagination thrives when it is nurtured, shared, and built upon, creating an ever-expanding landscape of human possibility. Imagination may be what ultimately distinguishes human intelligence. Many species solve problems, use tools, and communicate. What sets humans apart most dramatically is the scope and flexibility of our imagination. We imagine distant futures, construct complex narratives, create art, explore abstract concepts, and envision realities that do not exist. This capacity underlies language, culture, technology, and civilization. It allows us to learn from the past, plan for the future, and collaborate in ways no other species can match. Some researchers argue that imagination, more than raw intelligence or physical ability, is the defining feature of humanity. It is what let us spread across the globe, survive in diverse environments, and build societies of extraordinary complexity. Imagination is our greatest evolutionary inheritance, the trait that transformed a species of primates into the dominant force on the planet. Whether that dominance has been wise is another question, but the role of imagination in shaping it is undeniable. Understanding this helps us appreciate the responsibility that comes with such power and the importance of using imagination for good. And so, dear listener, we have wandered together through the quiet landscapes of imagination. From the first flickers of a child's dream to the vast collective visions that shape civilizations, we have explored how imagination weaves through every dimension of human life. It is the voice that whispers what if, the hand that reaches beyond the known, and the light that illuminates possibility in the darkest moments. Imagination is both personal and shared, solitary and social, playful and profound. It is the bridge between who we are and who we might become, between the world as it is and the world as it could be. As you rest here, breathing softly, thoughts drifting like leaves on a gentle stream, let yourself appreciate the quiet wonder of your own imagination. It has been with you since your first memory and it will accompany you to your last. It lives in everyday dream, every story you tell yourself, every vision of tomorrow you hold. It is the thread that connects your inner world to the outer, the gift that makes you endlessly creative, endlessly curious, endlessly human. Close your eyes now if you have not already. Let the weight of your body settle fully into rest. Feel the rise and fall of your breath, steady and slow. Imagine yourself in a place of perfect peace, wherever that may be for you. A quiet forest clearing, a sunlit meadow, a soft bed beneath a starry sky. Let the images come gently without effort, without strain. You need not create anything or solve anything. Simply let imagination carry you softly, easily into the deep and restful silence where dreams begin. And if you find yourself still awake when this ends, know that the next journey awaits, ready to guide you deeper still into the calm. But for now, release your thoughts, release your plans, release everything but the simple quiet breath. Let imagination, that faithful companion, hold you gently as you drift into sleep. If this journey gave your mind a little rest tonight, let it know by leaving a like and subscribing so you never miss the next one. Share it with someone whose mind could use a quiet moment too, and tell me in the comments what your imagination carried you toward tonight. Good night.